such as normally vented at the speechless infant in the home. No, out into this world, tiny little thing before its time, in a what? Girl, yes, tiny little girl, into this, out into this, before her time, God-forsaken hole, called. No matter, parents unknown, unheard of, he having vanished, thin air, no sooner buttoned up his breeches, she similarly, 8 months later, almost at the tick, so no love, spared that, no love such as normally vented on the speechless infant in the home, no, nor indeed for that matter, any of any kind, no love of any kind, at any subsequent stage, so, typical affair, nothing of any note till coming up to 60 when, what, 70, God, coming up to 70 when, wandering in a field, looking aimlessly for cowslips to make a ball, a few steps then stop, stare into space, then on, a few more, stop and stare again, so on, drifting around, when suddenly, gradually, all went out, all that early April morning light, and she found herself in the... What? Who? No! She! Found herself in the dark, and if not exactly insentient, for she could still hear the buzzing, so-called, in the ears, and a ray of light came and went, such as the moon might cast, drifting in and out of cloud, but so dulled, feeling so dulled, she did not know what position she was in. Imagine what position she was in, whether standing or sitting, but the brain, what? Kneeling, yes, whether standing or sitting or kneeling, but the brain, what? Lying, yes, whether standing or sitting or kneeling or lying, but the brain still, in a way, for her first thought was, long after, sudden flash, brought up as she'd been to believe, with the other waves, in the merciful, God, her first thought was, long after, sudden flash, she was being punished for her sins, a number of which then, further proof if proof were needed, flashed through her mind, one after the other, then dismissed as foolish, or wrong after, this thought's dismissed, as she suddenly gradually realised, she was not suffering. Imagine, not suffering. Indeed, could not remember offhand when she had suffered less. Unless, of course, she was meant to be suffering, thought to be suffering. Just as the odd time in her life, when clearly intended to be having pleasure, she was in fact having none, not the slightest, in which case, of course, that notion of punishment for some sin or other, or for the lot, or no particular reason, for its own sake, things she understood perfectly, that notion of punishment which first occurred to her, brought up as she'd been to believe, with the other waves, in a merciful God, first occurred to her, then dismissed as foolish, was perhaps not so foolish after all, so on, all that, vain reasonings, till this other thought, long after, sudden flash, very foolish really, but what, the buzzing, yes, all the time the buzzing, so-called, in the ears, though of course actually, not in the ears at all, in the skull, dull roar in the skull, and all the time this ray or beam, like moonbeam, but probably not, certainly not, always the same spot, now bright, now shrouded, but always the same spot, as no moon could, no moon, just all part of the same wish to torment, though actually, in point of fact, not in the least, not a twinge, so far, this other thought then, long after, sudden flash, very foolish really, but so like her, in a way, that she might do well to groan on and off, writhe, she could not, as if in actual agony, but could not bring herself, some flaw in her makeup, incapable of deceit, or the machine, more like to the machine, so disconnected, never got the message, or powerless to respond, like numbed, could not make the sound, not any sound, no sound of any kind, no screaming for help, for example, should she feel so inclined, scream, then listen, scream again, then listen again. No, spared that, all silent as the grave, no part, what? The buzzing, yes, all silent but for the buzzing, so-called. No part of her moving that she could feel, just the eyelids, presumably, on and off, shut out the light, reflex they call it, no feeling of any kind, but the lids, even best of times, who feels them, opening, shutting, all that moisture, but the brain still sufficiently, very much so, at this stage, in control, under control, to question even this, for on that April morning, so it reasoned, that April morning, she, fixing with her eye a distant bell, as she hastened towards it, fixing with her eye, lest it elude her, had not all gone out, all that light of itself, without any, on her part, so on it reasoned, vain questionings, and all dead still, sweet silent as the grave, when suddenly, gradually, she realised, what? The buzzing, yes, all dead still but for the buzzing, so-called, when suddenly she realised words were what? Who? No! She! Realised words were coming. Imagine, words were coming. A voice she did not recognise at first, so long since it had sounded, then finally had to admit could be none other than her own. Certain vowel sounds she'd never heard elsewhere, so that people would stare, though rare occasions, once or twice a year, always winter some strange reason, stared at her uncomprehending. And now this dream, she who had never, on the contrary, practically speechless all her days, how she survived. Even shopping, out shopping, busy shopping centre, supermarket. Just hand in the list with the bag, old black shopping bag, then stand there waiting any length of time, middle of the throng, motionless, staring into space, mouth half open as usual, till it was back in her hand, the bag back in her hand, then pay and go, not as much as goodbye. How she survived. And now this dream, not catching the half of it, not the quarter, no idea what she was saying. Imagine, no idea what she was saying. That's what she began trying to delude herself. It was not hers at all, not her voice at all, and no doubt would have, vital she should, was on the point after long efforts, when suddenly she felt, gradually, she felt her lips moving. Imagine her lips moving, as of course till then she had not, and not alone the lips, the cheeks, the jaws, the whole face, all those, what? The tongue, yes, the tongue in the mouth, all those contortions without which no speech possible, yet in the ordinary way, not felt at all, so intent one is on what one is saying, the whole being hanging on its words, so that not only not only had she to give up, admit hers alone, her voice alone, but this other awful thought, oh, long after, sudden flash, even more awful if possible, that feeling was coming back. Imagine, feeling coming back. Starting at the top, then working down, the whole machine. But no, spared that, the mouth alone, so far, so far. Then thinking, oh, long after, sudden flash, it can't go on, all this, all that, steady stream, straining to hear, make something of it, and her own thoughts, make something of them, all that, what? The buzzing, yes, all the time the buzzing, so-called, all that together, imagine, whole body like gone, just the mouth, lips, cheeks, jaws, never still, what? Tongue, yes, lips, cheeks, jaws, tongue, never still a second, mouth on fire, stream of words, in her ear, practically in her ear, not catching the half, not the quarter, no idea what she was saying, imagine, no idea what she was saying, and can't stop. No stopping it. She who but a moment before, but a moment, could not make a sound, no sound of any kind, and now can't stop the stream, and the whole brain begging, something begging in the brain, begging the mouth to stop, pause a moment, if only for a moment, and no response, as if it hadn't heard, or couldn't pause a second, like maddened, all that together, straining to hear, piece it together, and the brain raving away on its own, trying to make sense of it, or make it stop.